Our friend Sam McKewon joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Sam, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. Sam, before we get to hashtag GBR, are the Chicago Bears the worst run franchise in the NFL?
Yeah. Right now, I don't know. I mean, the GM. I'm not saying the GM can't turn it around. Ryan Poles effectively inherited the situation with the quarterback. And I'm not trying to put it all on Justin Fields. I'm just saying that Justin Fields and what the Bears are even trying to do, that they're just not. It doesn't work together. So hopefully Fields is able to find a situation that suits him and a staff that can help him be the best player he wants to be. Although, hey, Poles hired this coach, and I have a colleague who calls him Eberflub. And that's not that's pretty good if you ask me. So there's a lot of Bears fans in the media, and I threw something out there. Yes, this is the worst they've been in my lifetime, and this is really the only team I really truly root for. Where like that's I'm paying attention every week, and I watch the first half, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. You got guys celebrating false start penalties on the Chiefs as if that was an accomplishment. Just all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're just a silly, bad team. Their defensive coordinator, resigned last week for inappropriate behavior. Somebody else, some other separate person, broke into Hallis Hall and stole a bunch of stuff. It's a bad situation, and they need a new stadium. I'll tell you that. They need a stadium that's got a cover on it. They need a half dome. Otherwise, they're not going to attract a quarterback who wants to play in Chicago unless they get that.
Sam, let's move over to Nebraska. Obviously, the $1 million question is, what do you do with the quarterback spot heading into Michigan? As we probably won't have an answer until, I would guess, Saturday on that. What are some of the things that you're kind of thinking about and evaluating as you try and figure out who that should be against Michigan?
Well, you have a reasonably hot hand in Haarberg, at least as a runner. Do you want to put that on the bench for a guy that would be coming in cold? I mean, Jeff Sims has only played one play in the last 2 weeks, and he didn't look 100% while he was running it. Same time, can you lose your job because he got banged up late in the Colorado game? Haarberg didn't have to experience Minnesota and Colorado in that same way, and so. I think you probably roll with Haarberg if he's healthy. That said, Michigan changes the calculus. If you were playing Purdue this week, I think you'd be like, oh, let's see what happens. I think with Michigan, you have to kind of expect that they're going to come in and make things a lot harder for Nebraska than Nebraska's had even the last 2 weeks. Michigan's got the best statistical defense in the country. I don't know if it's actually the best. I suspect Ohio State is, but Michigan is very good. So I'd say Haarberg, he has a hot hand. Let's see how he runs the option. Let's see if he's able to get some things done there. Jeff Sims at the same time, you never know. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do. I'm not sure that either quarterback's going to win them the game, if that makes sense.
Sam, which one of these numbers is most close, like what it's going these stats going to be for Nebraska the next couple of weeks? The 13.4 yards per completion, or the completion percentage around 50% for Haarberg at only coming off of 8 of 17 again this weekend? Can they get chunks without being efficient, or will they have to be more efficient?
Good questions. I think that in theory they could get both efficiency and chunk play. I think that
hard to make a living that way.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't say they were a good passing team. I'm just saying that what they've been doing the last couple of weeks is in theory something they could continue. Now they rank 126th nationally in pass attempts, last among all power conference teams, 4 behind Rutgers that just played Michigan. Nebraska, I would love to see a more controlled, short to intermediate passing game that involves, receivers getting open, trying to run after the catch. They have not used the wide receiver short screen passing game very much yet at all. That just hasn't been a staple of what they're doing. They haven't had a lot of, you know what I'm talking about, bubble screens and smoke screens. They just haven't used that very much. Now, they could be holding it back for Michigan. My sense is Michigan's gonna press cover a lot, so I don't know that those plays will work quite as easily. A lot of the teams they played up to this point have done those things too. They're just not really afraid of Nebraska's receivers, so I think they're willing to just kind of play right up in their face mask. I think there's a chance to get a little bit more efficient. I just don't think it's a classically efficient passing team. Marcus Satterfield came from South Carolina, where I think last year they conceded 67% of their passes, and Rattler's somewhere above 70 right now. And he's come to a school where A, they don't have a passer as good as Spencer Rattler, and B, they don't have as many good skill players. And so he has a tough job right now. I think he's handled the press conferences pretty well. They're doing what they can, I think, to boost the offense. Then you come to this week, and this week could be rough. And then you get past this week, and then we're going to see more about what they can really be the rest of the season. Until they play Iowa at the end, and then it's going to get rough again. So Michigan is not the easiest team to play at this moment, but you play the hand you're dealt.
Sam, before we kind of look ahead to Michigan too much, I do want to ask you about the way the Louisiana Tech game played out. Are you leaning more towards that Nebraska kind of wore them down and broke the dam and was able to finally break through in the second half? Or do you see that more as, hey, they weren't totally committed to the style of football they needed to play in the first half to be successful offensively, and in the second half they really leaned into it? Is there one of those two ways that you kind of view that the game through?
I probably put the needle a little bit more toward the second one. But I think one thing that Nebraska fans will have to get used to with this staff is I don't think they go into a halftime or a tie ball game to worry.
Mm-hmm.
I think their framework is if we're tied or we're ahead going into the fourth, we like our chances. Now maybe that changes against Michigan. Again, that's the exception, but I don't think they're all that worried about that. I'm sure they would have loved to have been up 24-7. I don't know that there was an opportunity to be up that much, but I'm sure they would love that. But I don't think they're that worried about it. They come out in the second half. They had what amounted to, I don't even know what you want to call it, 22 personnel, 22 and a half, because Prohaska is in between the tackle and the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran the same play over and over. Prohaska and Lindenmeyer blocked down. Piper comes around on a pole, and Anthony Grant's behind the whole thing, and they did it over and over. And I don't think they were real, fancy about it or subtle about it. That's what they did. And they came out and ran power football, and they went right down the field. And then they ran the option some, and they went right down the field. Louisiana Tech didn't know how to defend it. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. And they probably could have racked up more yards and points doing that. But I feel like they were holding some stuff back. I thought that the pass rush against Louisiana Tech was very vanilla, and they held stuff back. They didn't get to him. That I recall, they didn't get a sack on him. They probably could have, but I think they felt like they knew what they wanted to do against this team, and they were able to come away with a win. I think we'll see more against Michigan, maybe some offensive plays that we haven't seen, and I think certainly more aggressive defensively, although that's a risk against Michigan. Michigan's got pretty good receivers.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, because 2 weeks ago I was having to explain why he should even be playing. But, man, I don't feel super optimistic about Grant being able to shoulder the load for too long without some help. Who's the next most viable candidate over the long haul? And how would Nebraska have to run it to allow that to happen?
And I don't know. I think Emmett Johnson was the second guy in. and then there's Quentin Ives, and I know they're high on Quentin Ives. I know they are.
Yeah, I just I think with
They know
that,
what he's doing.
I think with that, Sam, I think it's pass protection because it's complicated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out too, like real time. You'd have to play in such a way to protect the young guys in terms of pass pro.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously pass protection is enormously important. Probably the thing they lost with Ramir Johnson that hurt them the most. Yep. When you say the word complicated, and if it's complicated for you, it's complicated for them. So, well, seriously, I mean, like you're in a third person, you're watching it, and you know the game inside and out.
It's tough.
And they're in the 18, and they're watching it from the first person, which is harder. That's I mean, we stand up there and say, "Oh, they should have done this." Well, I'm not actually playing, so it's really hard. And if that's the case, then they've got to figure out what to do to make it a little bit easier. I agree that Anthony Grant's he's gonna take a lot of physical punishment in the Big Ten if this is the way they go.
And he's a punishing runner, right? Like he's not a guy that takes the high road. Like he's gonna try to give it to you.
Yeah, I think Anthony had a real nice game, and yes, he is gonna try to give it to you and physically hit you. Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives. Who after that? I'm not sure that Trevin Lubin. Can you pull Janiron Bonner in there, and can he be a pass pro guy and save a few snaps for Anthony Grant? It's just hard to tell exactly how they're going to go. They probably need to get to a bye week to figure it all out, but they got 2 games to play.
You guys, for some reason, man, I just think this game will be closer than the experts think. I just do. I watched Michigan a ton. We watched them against Rutgers, and from an intricacy standpoint, it's pretty much what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Loveland's a fantastic tight end. He had his coming out party against Nebraska a year ago, and I like Morgan outside the numbers, but I don't know. I just don't think they're going to stress Tony White and those guys defensively. I don't know. I got a weird good feeling about the competitiveness in this game.
I think it could be very competitive. Michigan's another team that's not worried. They're just not worried. If they go into the fourth quarter and it's 14-10, they're not worried. They nearly lost to Illinois last year.
I wonder why they can't get Edwards going.
Well, I think he's run the ball quite a bit. They use him a lot in the pass game, and he's got a few there. And again, what I would say is they're holding stuff back. They're not going to show everything. They have 2 games this season where they're going to be on the field with equally talented teams, and they're going to put everything they can into those 2 games. And Penn State is just as good. This year, Penn State's just as good as Ohio State. And so they have to put a lot into 2 games. It's their whole season. They want to play for the national championship. I think they absolutely could play for the national title this year. And so I don't think they've shown very much. I mean, certainly they didn't show it with the three teams that they played to start the season. And again, I think you get a pretty good sense of Michigan's going to beat Rutgers eventually. So you don't have to unload all of your best stuff. I think the same thing with Nebraska. I think Michigan could be up, 14-8 or 9 or 10 going into the fourth quarter and be like, we're going to win the game. And we're not all that worried about what it looks like. We have to win 2 games this season where we know we're going to have to do everything we can to win them. And that's what we're going to do. And I think, then you watch Michigan play Ohio State and you're like, where the hell has this team been all year? Well, they've been holding the hell back. And I think that's what you're going to see Saturday. A team that probably allows Nebraska to hang around if Nebraska's willing to hang around, but simultaneously is just physically superior.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. Sam, I have been wondering about the viability of a Nebraska offense that is, maybe passing the ball 12 to 15 times a game and predicating much of their running game around the QB run. If you're talking, 20 carries a game for Haarberg or Sims or whoever it is. As you kind of look through the Big Ten schedule and a Big Ten West that has not set the world on fire by any means, how viable do you think an offense that looks like that could be?
Well, it can, if you can run the option and you can beat a team, you can make a team pay for putting all those guys in the box and having their corners up tight, then I think it's viable. You've got to find a way to beat your opponent when your opponent is like, pressing you or up in your grill. And the option's one way of doing it. Throwing it behind them's another way. But, a lot of these teams that'll throw the ball 40 times, they have good enough receivers to scare the opposing defense. And so they're like, we're going to back off you here. We'll play off, and we'll let you throw these little 2-yard passes and things like that. Nebraska doesn't get a lot of that treatment. Nebraska, it's more, why don't you beat us here? Go ahead and here you go. Go deep. And, Nebraska's not really been able to do that. The only long pass I think they've hit that was like in the air more than 30 yards was that trick play in the first game of the year, and they had to use a trick play in order to complete that pass. So I think that's part of the challenge. Now, if you can run the option, you can quarterback run. That's good. At times, Saturday, Louisiana Tech had 9 guys in the box, and they ran the ball anyway, and they popped some runs. That can happen too. So that's probably the way Nebraska's going to have to go. I don't know. It's certainly not what they want to do. I mean, they would love to have Xavier Betts right now streaking behind the defense, but they don't. So they have to do the best they can with what they have.
Sam, you mentioned
he made it sound like I was a kid and I didn't get the toy I wanted.
Well, it's true. I mean, I don't know what, the first play of the game, I'm trying to, the first play of the game.
The shot play where they had to eat it?
Yeah, well, Malachi Coleman and Tommy Hill come out. Now, I don't know if Louisiana Tech's paying attention or not, but we're sitting up there in the press box, and I'm like, Malachi Coleman and Tommy Hill are in the game. They're going to go deep. I don't know what else. I mean, I don't know why else those guys would be out there. They haven't thrown them a little 4-yard stop.
Well,
and maybe they should. I mean, give Tommy Hill the ball. Get him the ball. What is he out there to do? You know what I mean? Just give him the ball.
Oh, listen, they tried to run the reverse to him, and the fans were mad. It was like, why don't you call that play? It's like, they can't win for losing.
Well, it's just give him the ball. Or just give him the ball. Or throw him a little hitch route and let him run. The poor guy goes out there and he runs, 70 yards, and it's just, and Malachi, at some point you just got to throw somebody the ball and let them see if they could do something. Let them feel the ball in their hands and carry it a little and get the blood flowing. So anyway, they do that on the first play of the game, and it doesn't work, and then those guys are gone. And so they're trying, but at the same time, it's just hard. I think it's really hard to play receiver at the collegiate level. I think they're trying to figure out what they can do. They're doing this with a young quarterback at the same time who's doing this for the first time. It's a tough hand. And, 2 years from now, I'm sure they'll look back on it and go, boy, that was a tough hand. Aren't we glad we have a better hand now? And that could be with Haarberg as a senior quarterback starting. But at this moment, this is all kind of tough to do, and they're trying to do the best they can.
Hey, Sam, how much of it do you think your sphere of influence, right, around a lot of people, do you think the sentiment is, well, I'm not sure we can win with this guy either, but he sure seems better than what I saw earlier? Because I don't get the sense Nebraska fans are feeling good about Haarberg either.
Well, the rank and file Nebraska fan just sees a guy that's running for touchdowns and running long runs, and they like that. So I think that that's relative. I think when you're a higher level thinker, and so I think you're thinking not really about, well, what had happened in this tiny sample size against Louisiana Tech. But you're thinking about, okay, 5-6 weeks from now, what is this going to look like, and what will we have said? And I get all that, and yeah, I think that fan is in a wait and see mode a little bit, although pleased with what Haarberg's trying to get done and his toughness, and he seems like a likable guy, and he doesn't all those things, and so sure, I think there's some of that there. People were awfully hard on Taylor and Adrian Martinez in their time here. You'd take both of them right now, quite a bit. So, and that's no knock on Haarberg. He's just at the beginning of something. And yeah, I think Sims made the mistakes he made. So I think people are a little leery about him going back into the game. They don't want to see turnovers. I think for the most part, people just kind of hold their breath when Nebraska has the ball on offense a little bit. The defense gives them a lot of joy. They kind of know what they're going to see, and they know that it's going to be pretty good, and people are going to hit and run and all that. When I talk to rank and file fans, they say that, and then they're like, "Yeah, I like Haarberg." They're hopeful that he does well. I don't know. Skepticism is probably there, but I think any good thing that happens on offense makes them right.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
I appreciate being on. Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
Some interesting stuff there from Sam. I don't know if I agree about how fans feel about the quarterback situation. I think they want to root for Haarberg as much because he's a Nebraska kid as anything else.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know? You don't think that plays a big part in it?
No, I think they want to win.
I agree.
I think they'd rather. I don't. You know what? I at no point ever thought that it was the hometown thing.
Okay, that's fair.
Doesn't mean I'm right.
Well,
when did you get soft in your old age?
Well,
are you still traumatized from Lawrence?
I am.
Rezac, what are we talking
I'm
about
a little
here?
shook here. You won't be shook though if you go